Isn't that an amazing view? And to think the idea for that came up in 1939. That's Lake Argyle down there. We'll be spending a couple of days here and having a look around, doing a cruise on the lake as well. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because this morning we're still in Katherine. We haven't left yet, so let's get started. We didn't need to start early today because we're only going to travel about 513 kilometres, and when we get to the border we need to change our clocks back an hour and a half, so we'll get some extra time back. So if we get there at about 1 PM, then we have to set our clocks back to 11:30.
The blue sky will take us home. We'll take it easy, we'll take it slow. It's a good day for the road.
Speaking of the border, when coming into WA from either the Nullarbor or from up this end up here, you have to go through quarantine. They will look for any fruit, veg, honey, plant matter and a number of other things. If you want to get through quickly, then make sure you remove everything before you get to the station, or have it all bagged up ready for them. And don't give them a hard time, they're only doing their job protecting WA agriculture.
It was pretty comfy inside, but so that price,
Diamonds shine.
oh yeah, alright. You guys been through here before?
My guitar's asleep on the backseat.
Well, the other border down at Hickman is exactly the same, so you know exactly what's going on. Coach Scav, they were told you that through the way.
Perfect day for the road. And time goes so fast.
And just like that, we're clear of the border and we're off again. It's only 6 kilometres before we turn onto the Lake Argyle Road.
Don't worry today. Even if time flies away. Even if time flies away.
We left Katherine early this morning. We've been driving for about 5 or so hours. Not too long ago we crossed the West Australian Northern Territory border and did our quarantine checks and everything as we came through. We're just coming into the Lake Argyle area, just crossing the waterway they put in to divert the water from the Ord River while they were building the dam. And that is now the spillway, not the spillway, the overflow. So when the dam comes to the top and it's going to go over the dam, that's its first exit. We actually saw that on the river cruise we did from Lake Argyle, from Lake Kununurra. When we were in Kununurra a week or so ago, we went past where that comes out. So a bit unusual to see water in there at the moment. So obviously there's plenty of water in the Ord River, in the Lake Argyle area. So we're spending a couple of days here, so we're going to do a cruise on the tour on the Lake Argyle as well. It's a really nice drive coming into this place. The Argyle Caravan Park is right on the edge of Lake Argyle. It's about 45 minutes from Kununurra. The park is huge, and once again there are heaps of trees to give plenty of shade from the burning sun. The site sizes all appear to be a decent size, with plenty of room for manoeuvring your van in and out. Here again you get escorted to your site by a fella on a push bike this time. Tent land covers a fairly big area, although it does appear to be lacking in a few trees. They also have different types of on-site accommodation, most of them looking out over the lake. As for the pool area, you can't get any better than this. The park has the usual cafe cum restaurant, which is open to everybody, with a great beer garden eating area at the back. And at night time there is often live music to pass the night away while you enjoy a good feed at what I consider a reasonable price considering where you are. On the way up through Kununurra on the way to Darwin, I spoke a little bit about the Duraks, how they were the first cattle station up here. They opened this area up. Now Kim Durak, a bit of a forward thinker I guess, he could see the potential for the area for irrigated farming, but water is an issue up here. During the wet season there's too much of it, and during the dry season there's not enough. So I guess he probably climbed one of these hills around here somewhere and sat up the top there and figured, well, if I put a dam across there, that would flood the river and that would create plenty of water. And the only problem was he had to get his farm to be flooded because his station was down in the bottom there. 20 years it was before the government actually started construction on the dam. They got the house that the Durex lived in and pulled it apart piece by piece and shifted it up the road here and put it back together, and now it's a tourist attraction just down from the caravan park.
With the flooding of the valley, the Durex station was going to be on the dam floor. So they moved the homestead to higher ground. In its day, the homestead was considered the social meeting place for the East Kimberley area. It was originally built in 1895 from handcrafted limestone blocks with crushed termite mounds used as mortar. The homestead was dismantled stone by stone, with every stone coated so that they would be able to rebuild it with every stone back in its original place. Going inside, you get the story of the Durex and life in the Kimberleys. The Durex settled in the Kimberleys around 1884, with half of their 7,250 cattle that they left Queensland with. At the time, it was the longest trek by Australian drovers.
So this is Lake Argyle. This is where the Ord River originally went through and was part of the Argyle Downs station, which was owned by the Durex. So all this was flooded, and the way it is at the moment is about maybe 54 Sydney Harbours worth of water in there. On the wall on the other side, you can see out there, for every metre that goes up, that's about the equivalent of another Sydney Harbour worth of water sitting in the dam. And this goes back, I think, something like about 600 kilometres. It's a huge catchment area. Then down here, this is the dam itself. Now the dam itself was actually made out of rock. There's not really any concrete involved in there. Would have been on the base, some concrete was put down, but the rest is all basically rock. And the rock they blew out from
from the hills around here. That hill over there, just on the other side of that, I'll show you. There's a big hole in the wall, in the rock that goes around there where they had blown it out to build the dam. That is also the overflow. If the dam gets too high, the water gets too high, the water will come through that overflow and then down that road you can see down there, follow that through, and then it will go down into the river, and that's the Ord River heading back to Kununurra. The spillway which we went over earlier when we drove in, that's where they diverted the actual river around the whole area so they could build a dam. It took them a couple of years to build it because they had to build the foundations first and then wait for the wet season and then build the rest of it after that. Big project. Now down the bottom here is the hydroelectric system. You can see the water bubbling away. That's the water that's coming out from the bottom and coming up into the river, and then it goes down the river down to Kununurra. The hydroelectric system provides power to Kununurra and surrounding area, but it also provides power to the Argyle diamond mine, which is up that way. Now you recall when we were driving up in, what would have been leg 2. I talked about the Argyle diamond and the fact that it's going to close down in 2020. Now that creates a problem because this is providing a lot of power for the Argyle diamond. When Argyle diamond closes down, people aren't really sure what's going to happen to the hydroelectric system because it produces a lot of electricity, a lot more than what Kununurra needs. So people are questioning whether the hydro system is going to stay active or whether they're going to close it down potentially. That's kind of the ideas they're thinking about. So yeah, it'd be interesting in 2020 what's going to happen.
So the dam wall is as high as it is wide on the bottom.
You can drive across the dam wall, and as you go you start to see the Ord River that we came up on a few weeks ago on the boat. So that's a hydroelectric system down there. The water coming out there, the small water you can see coming out, that's from the cooling water for cooling the turbines and everything. The water that's actually going through the turbines to create the electricity is the kind of whirlpool-y type of water you can see coming up out of the bottom. The big 3 holes you can see in the side there, that's for if the dam level gets too high, they can open those up and let the water out before it actually overflows, and they do that in a controlled fashion between here and the diversion dam down in Kununurra. Because they've got to try to keep this level at a certain level, they'll drop the diversion dam walls down to allow more water to continue out through the Ord River system without flooding further downstream. You don't often see those doors open. Like I said, I was here in the late 1970s. This was about 10 years old, I think, a little over 10 years old. And I got some photos of all 3 of them being open at once. And I can't remember the figure of the amount of water that comes out when they're open. It's a ridiculous amount of water per second coming out. Absolutely amazing amount of water that this place holds. There's been talk for years of instead of the water going down the Ord River, pumping that water all the way to Perth. It would solve Perth's water shortage forever. And they were also talking at one point of running a spur off the pipeline and then running it across to Adelaide as well to solve Adelaide's water problems. They're all just ideas and theories. It costs too much money for them to do it, so they're not going to do it, unfortunately. They even said they had the technology. They could build the pipeline from here to Karratha, because in Karratha you've got the gas pipeline that runs down to Perth. They could put the water into the gas pipeline together with the gas. When it gets down to the other end, they can take the water out and remove it from the gas and then separate it and bring the water down to the city that way as well. But again, too much money.
Size of Lake Argyle, this is the only public access to the lake.
The next day we took the bus for our cruise on Lake Argyle. And, by the way, they pick you up from the caravan park.
Just be mindful when you step off the bus, not to do yourself an injury.
And before we even leave the boat ramp, we spot our first croc.
Like a pretty used spot by house. They use it pretty often. Pretty high though. Yeah, it's been crawling right up. Yeah, it's nice. Oh, thank you. Rocks are warmer a bit higher up.
As the dam started flooding the surrounding area, little islands started appearing and the local animals headed for higher ground. The animals, like these rock wallabies, have learnt to adapt to their new living arrangements, and also how to sit on a rock looking really cute so the passing tourist boats will feed them. Don't panic, they have got the correct food and approval from the government to feed them. It surprised me a little bit about how choppy it can get out here, and with that comes the wind, so hang on to your hat. Another island and more wallabies.
Here come the others.
There's the one with the big gallery. Come on down. Front up. They did what they call a coyote.
That's where the overflow is that I showed you earlier.
Big holes at the base of that hill.
This boat was made for speed to get quickly around this vast lake. Unfortunately, this boat is also good for getting a shower in rough water. At least if you're sitting up the front. Not so bad if you're up the back. But our captain knew exactly where he could put the hammer down when behind an island and then back off as we come into the more unprotected open waters. It's hard to imagine that these little islands were once tops of huge hills. And of course, what everybody wants to see was more crocodiles. It's okay, the crocodiles in the lake are freshwater crocs. The salties can't get past the dam wall.
Too close for comfort. He'd be at least 3. Just old croc. You always underestimate crocodiles, don't you? He's not bad size fishing. Yeah, so he's every bit of tree. Fish follow you? Easy follows all the way.
There are 25 species of fish in the lake, including the archer fish. If you hold a bit of fish food over the side, they spit at you to knock it into the water. They think it's a flying bug.
Go on, Archie, so yeah, we're pretty lucky in terms of there's no introduced species. Yeah, they're not that nice.
Like
Yeah.
that in the States in New Orleans.
Yeah, right.
As the sun starts to go down, the colours on the land really start to come out. We're getting to the furthest point that we'll be travelling today. We've only travelled about 10-ish kilometres from the start, which is only a small part of the lake. Oh, and side note, this is where Argyle Diamond Mine is. From here, it's pretty much open water for as far as you can see. You do get an opportunity on this tour to go for a swim in the lake. However, on this trip it was a little bit cool, so nobody was up for going in. Or did it have something to do with all the crocs we've seen? Well, that is it for our time up here at Lake Argyle. We've had a couple of amazing days here. Absolutely brilliant cruise on the river. So if you liked what you saw, hit the thumbs up down the bottom down there and consider subscribing. Anyway, till next time, happy travels.